Hey guys, tonight we step into the sun-drenched sandals of the original overachiever Apollo. He's charming, shiny, great with a lyre, devastating with a bow, and completely incapable of keeping his love life under control. As you drift off, tonight, you'll follow his absurdly complicated story, starting with a snake fight at age 4 days and ending in emotional ruin, unrequited love, and a tree dot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are born in chaos. Technically, your mother Leto gives birth to you on a floating island named Delos, because no sane landmass wanted to mess with Hera. Yes, that Hera, the queen of the gods, professionally jealous, famously dramatic. She made sure no land would offer your mother shelter during labor. Honestly, Petty doesn't even begin to cover it. But Delos? Delos doesn't count as land. It's a drifting rock with commitment issues. So you, Apollo, future god of light, music, and disastrous crushes, are born there, alongside your twin sister Artemis. She comes out first. She's calm, poised, possibly judging you already. Then you arrive shining, golden, a literal pain in Hera's divine behind. You're 4 days old when you decide to start slaying monsters. Because why nap when you can engage in pre-toddler homicide? The target is Python, a giant, stinking, earth dragon thing that guarded the sacred site of Delphi. Python had chased your mother across the land when she was pregnant. You, with divine memory and a strong sense of spite, decide it's justice time. You march, or rather wobble into the world, bow in hand. How did you even get a bow? And track down Python. It's a fight worthy of epic ballads, though most bards gloss over the fact you're still technically a newborn, with an umbilical stump. Python is fast, ancient, and absolutely not in the mood for baby archers. But you're divine, radiant, and probably running on revenge juice. You shoot arrows so hot they sizzle mid-air. The earth cracks beneath Python's coils. Birds flee, crickets stop mid-chirp. A goat faints somewhere. And then you hit your mark. Python dies, writhing and cursing. You plant your shiny sandals in the dust and say nothing, because you're 4 days old and don't know words yet. Historians still argue whether this story is symbolic of light overcoming darkness or just Greek poets being dramatic with mythological metaphors. Either way, you're a newborn deity who just made their first kill. Neat. Of course. The gods frown on you killing a creature sacred to Gaia, Earth herself. So Zeus, king of the gods and frequent lightning abuser, tells you to chill. You don't. Instead, you decide Delphi, the place Python once guarded, will now be yours. And so it begins your lifelong pattern of taking things that aren't yours, getting cursed, and then somehow turning it into a religious movement. You set up your first shrine at Delphi. You consecrate the site by burying Python's corpse under a massive altar stone and declare, "This is holy now." There's no priesthood yet, no oracles. Just you, glowing mildly, standing among crushed scales, hoping someone notices. People do, eventually. Word spreads that the killer of Python lives there. They come in trickles, then droves. Mortals bring you gifts, fruit, gold, complicated sheep sculptures. You accept all with the same unblinking expression of divine detachment. And because you're young and extra, you decide your shrine needs a staff. Here's where it gets weird. Instead of hiring assistants like a normal person, you hijack a merchant ship by turning yourself into a giant dolphin. Yes, a dolphin. The sailors freak out. One tries to jump overboard. You gently nudge the boat all the way to Delphi, beach it, and then poof into your golden humanoid self and say, "Congratulations, you now work in my temple." They don't really have a choice, but they do get uniforms, and titles, and snacks. So it's not all bad. This, by the way, is why some of your cult titles include Delphinius, meaning of the dolphin. Fringe theorists love this bit. Some say it's a nod to Minoan sea cults. Others think you were just trying out new personas. You know, like a divine rebrand. Meanwhile, back at Olympus, the other gods are amused. Zeus is proud, in a vaguely please don't blow up another mountain way. Hera remains salty. Hermes, your future frenemy, is already plotting. But, for now, you bask in the glow of your own legend. You've avenged your mother, claimed a sacred site, founded a temple, and built a staff using aquatic coercion. Not bad for a first week alive. And you haven't even tried writing music yet.
You grow up radiant, not just like cute baby photos, radiant, but literal. Blinding sunglasses won't help radiant. Your hair glows like midday sun. Your skin? Ethereal. Your laugh? Birds sing in harmony with it. You're what ancient poets would call terrible in beauty, which is code for gorgeous but deeply stressful to be around. And you're not alone. Artemis, your twin sister, is your near constant companion. She's moonlight to your sunlight, cool, collected, and just as intimidating. Together, you're an unstoppable pair of miniature deities frolicking through meadows, taming wild animals, and confusing nearby mortals with your matching god auras. Your mother, Leto, is exhausted. She's technically homeless. Thanks again to Hera and raising two divine children without the benefit of a support group or decent wine. But she's tough. She doesn't complain. Probably because she's still recovering from childbirth. While being chased by giant serpents and harassed by angry swans. Speaking of Hera, she hasn't forgotten her grudge. She still resents you, little sunbeam, simply for existing. Which is fair, if you're the kind of person who sees vengeance as a lifelong hobby. She sends obstacles your way, minor monsters, weird curses, passive-aggressive temple snubs, but none of it sticks. Because you're Apollo. You are immune to irrelevance. And like every golden child, you develop a flaw. Ego.c, people worship you. Early and enthusiastically. Farmers leave fresh grain by your statues. Sailors name ships after your eyebrows. Poets weep while composing odes to your cheekbones. You start to believe your own myth. And why wouldn't you? You literally are one. Historians still argue whether your popularity was due to your actual domains, sun, music, healing, prophecy, or just because you were, by Olympian standards, one of the more hygienic gods. You had a thing for order. Clean temples. Clean altars. No entrails lying around for fun. You hated chaos, unlike Dionysus, who thought chaos was dessert. Your temples had structure. Priests had rules. Hymns had meter. You were a divine Virgo before astrology got cute. Beneath that shining exterior, something simmers. You want more than worship. You want to be understood, appreciated, maybe even loved. Unfortunately, you have no idea how emotions work, or boundaries, or when to stop talking about yourself. You fall in love too easily. You give people gifts they didn't ask for. You hold grudges when they don't swoon. You write songs about your feelings and make the wind carry them to your ex's house at midnight. And worst of all, you're competitive. Like aggressively competitive. One time, Artemis beats you at archery and you sulk for 3 days. Not openly, just a casual thunderstorm over the Aegean and a few cryptic verses whispered into temple incense smoke. You challenge Hermes, your little brother, to a musical duel after he steals your cows and invents the lyre, which you then decide is actually yours now, thank you. Hermes is too chill to fight over it, but he does invent sarcasm the next day. And the muses? You love them. They're your creative squad. But if one of them compliments another god's poem, you start accidentally rewriting their hymns during festival season. Still, You're beautiful enough that people tolerate you, even when you're dramatic. Even when your sun chariot runs late and crops get confused. You move through the world like it owes you an explanation. And usually, it agrees. But there's one domain you cannot control. One mystery that continues to elude you. Year after golden year. Romance.love for you is like archery in a mirror, beautiful, impossible, and mostly self-inflicted. You chase affection with the same energy you use to slay monsters or compose an ode. But mortals are squishy, and other gods? Unpredictable. You don't like things you can't perfect. So you try harder. You shine brighter. You offer gifts, write music, give prophecies, even curse a few rivals. And somehow, it never quite lands. But, hey, maybe that'll change. Maybe the next one will love you back. Maybe she likes sun gods. Maybe she won't turn into a tree.
You decide your brand needs a headquarters. Sure, Delphi's nice python's dead. The view is great, and mortals keep showing up with figs and questions. But you're Apollo. You don't just need a temple. You need the temple. A full-blown, marble-slick, column-flexing monument to you. One with acoustics so good you could whisper a prophecy and still give someone in the back row an existential crisis. So, you head out. You travel across the Greek world, glowing slightly, asking polite questions like, "Hello, which of you humble?" Locations would like to be eternally sacred to the god of everything shiny and poetic. Some towns try too hard. Others barely try at all. One place offers you a goat and a bucket of olives. You appreciate the effort, but keep moving. Eventually, you start taking notes. You look for signs like sunbeams hitting just the right mountain peak, or birds circling in a pleasing geometric pattern. The usual divine real estate checklist. And then you find it, a slope above a sacred spring, nestled in the crags of Mount Parnassus. It's got dramatic elevation, misty ambience, a sense of mystery. You nod thoughtfully and say, "Yes, this feels like where mortals should cry and beg for answers." But you are still a god. You don't do construction. So you summon help. Tap into the sacred shimmering realm of divine outsourcing. You command priests to build you a shrine. Not just any priests, your newly acquired dolphin sailors, from that merchant ship you casually hijacked in the last section. They're still recovering from the sudden career change. Yesterday, they were transporting jars of olive oil. Today, they're temple staff, wearing white robes and arguing about incense quality. But they build, stone by stone, altar by altar. They follow your vision. Clean lines, sunlit courtyards, enough. Room for oracles to flail around dramatically when the divine mood strikes. Delphi becomes the place, the holy epicenter. People flock there, asking the big questions. Should I marry this person? Will my crops fail? Will Sparta invade on Wednesday? And through your priestesses, you whisper cryptic responses like, "The eagle dances when the olives bloom," which sounds profound until someone realizes it means you're going to lose your job. Historians still argue whether your answers were purposefully vague or just the result of tripping on temple fumes. Some even suggest your oracle room had a natural gas leak. Fringe theory? Sure, but try inhaling volcanic vapors and not seeing the future. Delphi gains momentum. You commission the first Pythian games music, poetry, and sports, all rolled into one. Like the Olympics, but with better lyrics and fewer chariot crashes. Winners get a laurel wreath. Not cash, not trophies, a bunch of leaves. Because you, Apollo, believe in symbolism over practicality. Still, the prestige grows. Kings send gold. Philosophers send questions. Farmers send livestock. One guy sends a very confused llama. You accept it anyway. You're polite like that. The oracle becomes a permanent fixture. She's called the Pythia, in honor of your first serpentine victim. She's chosen from the local women, older, wise, and ideally comfortable with dramatic trance performances. Her job? To sit on a tripod, inhale vapors from the chasm, and speak your divine will. Sometimes she babbles. Sometimes she sings. Sometimes she just makes a noise like a haunted teapot and everyone claps. And yet, somehow, it works. Empires rise and fall based on what she says. Wars are launched. Marriages crumble. All because someone asked a question and the oracle answered. The stones remember who walks twice. You, of course, take credit for all of it, even when it's confusing. Especially when it's confusing, because ambiguity is powerful. You understand that. You're the god of prophecy, not clarity. Meanwhile, your reputation spreads. You become the model of divine masculinity, graceful, untouchable, emotionally unavailable. Statues of you multiply. Always nude because Greece. Always idealized because ego. Poets write about your face. Sculptors obsess over your calves. Artists try to capture your eternal pout and fail because there's no paint color for divine regret. And yet, in the middle of this glow-up tour, you still feel itchy, not physically, emotionally. Delphi is great, but it doesn't love you. It worships you, honors you, shoves goats at you, but it doesn't see you. And so you wander, not away from Delphi, never far, just around, looking, hoping that somewhere out there, under a fig tree or behind a marble column, there's someone who won't run away when they see you coming. Spoiler, they will run. You meet her by accident. Asterisk, not in a thunderbolt and choir of angels kind of way. More like you're wandering around being radiant and she's just trying to live her life kind of way. Her name is Daphne, and from the moment you see her, you are doomed. Asterisk, you're strolling through Thessaly, or maybe Arcadia. Let's be honest, the sources disagree, and you weren't exactly dropping pins on a divine map. The important thing is, the light hits the clearing just right. The breeze smells like new leaves, and there she is. Asterisk Daphne, a nymph, a dryad, to be specific, daughter of the river god, Peneus, fast on her feet, fiercely independent, and 100% uninterested in dating literal sun gods. Asterisk, which, of course, means you immediately fall in love. Asterisk, because you have a type. Asterisk, that type is emotionally unavailable forest girls who do not want to talk. Asterisk, you try to be cool. You strum your lyre. You smile like sunlight breaking through the clouds. You casually float 2 inches off the ground. You throw in a line about prophecy. Maybe flex a golden forearm. Classic Apollo moves. Asterisk, Daphne glances your way, makes a noise somewhere between a sigh and a groan, and bolts. Asterisk, she doesn't even try to be polite about it. Just full sprint into the trees. You blink. Surely, she didn't mean to asterisk. Oh no, she's really running. You chase her, because you're Apollo, and being ignored makes you spiral a little. Okay, a lot. And also, you've just been hit by one of those arrows. Right, that part. Let's rewind a little. Asterisk, earlier that day, you had a run-in with a smug little guy named Eros. You know him. Son of Aphrodite, wields a bow. Wears far too little clothing for someone giving out emotional trauma. Asterisk, you saw him practicing archery. You made a joke. Something like, careful there, Cupid. Those arms were made for tickling, not warfare. Eros did not laugh. Instead, he pulled out 2 arrows. Asterisk, one was gold and sharp, guaranteed to make the victim fall instantly, overwhelmingly. In love, the other was dull and leaden, guaranteed to cause absolute revulsion. He shot you with the first. He shot Daphne with the second. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic punishment or just mythological comedy with emotional consequences. Fringe theorists suggest Eros was teaching you a lesson. Regular people think he was just being a tiny chaos goblin. Asterisk, either way, it worked. You are now in love with someone who finds the mere idea of you revolting. So you run after her. Asterisk, she leaps. Over streams, dives through bushes, ducks beneath low branches. You call out poetic things like, "Please don't flee, O vision of barkless beauty." And my heart burns brighter than my chariot. She responds by sprinting faster. Start tripping on roots. Birds scatter. Your laurel wreath slips sideways. Somewhere in the distance, Artemis hears all this and rolls her eyes for 10 solid minutes. Asterisk, eventually, Daphne grows desperate. Asterisk, she reaches the bank of a river, her father's river. And she cries out, "Dad, help me. I would rather not exist than be caught by him." And the river god listens, which, in Greek myth, is always a bad sign. Asterisk, because when a river god helps, it usually involves permanent solutions. You watch in real time as Daphne's skin turns to bark. Her limbs stiffen. Asterisk, her hair flows upward, then solidifies into leaves. Asterisk, her feet sink into the earth. Toes become roots. Her breath becomes the whisper of wind in the branches. Asterisk, she becomes a tree, not metaphorically, literally, a laurel tree. Tall, elegant, slightly judging you in silence. You skid to a halt, confused, sweaty, and still wildly in love. Asterisk, you touch her bark gently. You whisper apologies. You write songs on the spot. You swear you didn't mean to scare her, but the tree says nothing, because she is now bark and leaves and the distant memory of freedom. Asterisk, and you, Apollo, learn the worst kind of heartbreak, the one where you didn't even get a chance to mess it up slowly. Asterisk, you did it all at once. You stand there for a long time, not dramatically long, okay. No, exactly dramatically long. The kind of long where birds start nesting nearby and a passing satyr offers you a sympathy fig. You don't move. You don't speak. Your divine aura dims to a gentle flicker. You're Apollo, god of music, sun, and logical overreactions. And you just got friend-zoned by a tree. You sigh, loudly, because of course she turned into a tree. Why wouldn't she? That tracks. That's just your kind of luck. Maybe next time you'll fall for a breeze or a rock. Honestly, it'd be less humiliating. You sit under her for a while. Compose a few melancholic verses. Something in D minor, your heartbreak key. You pluck your lyre strings, hoping the wind will carry your song into her sap-filled heart. It doesn't. The tree remains magnificently, infuriatingly silent. But you're not done. Because if there's one thing you're even more passionate about than chasing unattainable women, it's salvaging your dignity. So you declare the laurels sacred. That's right. You look up at the tree, Daphne's tree, and in a very official God of Proclamation's voice, you say, "From this moment forth, let this laurel be a symbol of glory and purity and poetic suffering." You don't ask permission. She's a tree. Now, consent gets complicated when bark is involved. You gather a few of her leaves carefully, respectfully, and fashion a wreath. Then you place it on your head, slowly, like you're being crowned by fate itself. And now it's fashion. Historians still argue whether this was your way of honoring Daphne or just rebranding rejection into wearable symbolism. Fringe scholars suggest it was an early case of spiritual accessorizing. Either way, it sticks. The laurel wreath becomes your thing. Victors in your Pythian games, they get laurels. Poets who impress you. Laurels. Oracles who channel your vibe with extra flair, full laurel bonus. You turn heartbreak into high fashion. You, my glowing narcissist, invent romantic branding. Mortals eat it up. Fast forward a few centuries, and everyone's wearing laurel crowns like they mean something. Laureate poets, resting on your laurels. All of it traces back to that day. You got curved by a nymph and didn't know how to handle it like a grown god. You keep visiting her tree, not obsessively, just Regularly. You leave gifts, poems, sunlight, gently curated bird calls. You once try to serenade her at dawn with a 16-string lyre solo. A nearby owl heckles you. Eventually, you stop talking to the tree, not because you've moved on, but because you realize somehow your music still reaches her. The breeze that rustles her leaves feels a little musical. The light that hits her bark shimmers a bit more gold. She's not speaking, but she's listening. Maybe. Or maybe you just need to believe she is. Either way, she becomes part of you. The part that didn't get the girl, the part that learned finally that love isn't about winning, that chasing too hard makes things run away, that some hearts, no matter how radiant yours might be, will never want what you offer. And it humbles you. Not a lot, let's not get carried away. You're still Apollo. Your temples still get incense from 6 continents. Your profile statues still have perfect cheekbones. But now, there's a sliver of sadness behind your smile, a softness in your melody, a sense that beneath all the gold and glory, there's someone who once lost a girl so thoroughly, she became foliage to avoid him. You even start giving better romantic advice when mortals come to Delphi asking, "Will my beloved return to me?" Your priestess now says things like, "The mountain does not move, even when the goat begs." Which, honestly, is pretty solid advice. Confusing? Absolutely. But meaningful. And when someone asks about you, Apollo, the golden boy, the bringer of plague and poetry, they get the full picture now. They hear about the dragon slayer, the god of song, the chariot rider and also about the tree, the one who said no and how you loved her anyway. You tried to forget her, not all at once, of course. That's not how divine heartbreak works. You don't get the luxury of binge watching a bad comedy and deleting old messages. You're eternal. Your feelings echo in marble and sunlight. Forgetting takes effort and centuries. So you get busy. First, you lean hard into your job. You're still the god of prophecy, music, truth, healing, and a side hustle in archery. The to-do list is never-ending. Mortals need answers. Poets need inspiration. The plague doesn't just unleash itself. After all, it needs a little divine nudge now and then. You do your rounds. You help build more temples. You whisper cryptic things into dreams. You casually invent the concept of harmony in music because nobody else was doing it right. Your followers are impressed. Your enemies are intimidated. And the other gods mostly tolerate you. But every time you see a laurel wreath, it happens again. A flash of leaves. A breeze with her name in it. That hollow feeling just below your ribs. Like a song with the last note missing. You try to ignore it. Sometimes you succeed. Sometimes you end up composing an 8-minute ballad and setting a meadow on fire. Artistic process. Historians still argue whether your melancholy era was your most creatively productive or just the most dramatic. Fringe scholars claim you invented emo before it had a name. You don't deny it. Your lyre gets extra moody around full moons. Eventually, you decide to focus on family. And by family, we mean the chaos of your many illegitimate children. Because turns out, even when you're emotionally unavailable and vaguely glowing, mortals still fall for you. It's the cheekbones. It's always the cheekbones. So you end up with kids. Lots of them. Most of whom have complicated lives and unfortunate endings. There's Asclepius, the god of medicine, born from a mortal woman who catches fire during childbirth because someone you showed up too radiant. Asclepius is great with herbs and healing, but Zeus zaps him with a lightning bolt for bringing people back from the dead. You get mad and invent medical malpractice lawsuits as revenge. Probably. There's Orpheus, your musical golden boy, who charms stones and rivers with his songs, then loses his wife in the underworld because he couldn't follow instructions. For 5 minutes, you try to stay proud. You really do. But come on, kid. And then there's Cyparissus, a sweet boy, a little soft, a little sensitive. You give him a sacred stag, a beautiful deer with silvery antlers and trusting eyes. It becomes his best friend. They're inseparable. Until one day, he accidentally kills it. He cries for days, won't eat, won't sleep, just sobs into the grass until the gods, probably you, transform him into a cypress tree. Tall, still, eternally mourning. You start seeing a theme here. Love things. They turn into trees. You don't mention it at family reunions. But despite the tragedies, your children reflect you. They carry your music, your passion, your reckless intensity. Some of them start cults. Some get tragic poems written about them. Some just fade into myth, their names twisted by centuries. You love them all in your own complicated, solar flare way. You don't forget Daphne, but you learn to place that ache in a quieter room in your mind, somewhere near the harp strings and the smell of wild laurel leaves. You stop visiting the tree, not out of cruelty, out of respect. She asked for distance. You finally give it. Instead, you focus on shaping the world. You inspire new festivals. You whisper truth so gently that people think they discovered them on their own. You stand tall in the pantheon as the one god who can make mortals weep with a melody and scream with a plague, sometimes in the same week. You become a paradox, sun god with shadows in his heart, a bringer of clarity who still can't make sense of love, and you own it. Because if there's one thing you've learned, it's this: being a god isn't about perfection. It's about presence. And if you can't always be happy, you can at least be honest. Honest in your songs, in your prophecies, in the soft, haunted notes you play when no one's listening. The other gods notice. Hermes calls you dramatic, but in an affectionate way. Artemis side-eyes your musical therapy, but secretly hums your sad melodies when she's bored. Zeus pretends not to care, but you've caught him misting up once or twice during a performance. Ares just says, "That was dumb. Fight me," and storms off. You're still Apollo, bringer of light, keeper of grief. And even though she's gone, even though she's barked in leaf and silence, you carry Daphne with you. Not in your arms. Time passes, but in your songs. And by time, we mean the full stretch of ancient history, plus a few centuries for dramatic flair. Empires rise, statues crumble, and someone eventually decides wearing socks with sandals is a good idea. But you remain, because gods don't age, they adapt. You shift subtly as the world changes. The music evolves, and you evolve with it, though you still think lyres are underappreciated. Mortals stop building temples and start naming space missions after you, which, honestly, feels like a decent trade-off. But Daphne? She stays rooted. A quiet presence in a noisy world. The laurel tree that once was a girl, who once was a nymph, who once just wanted to be left alone. And yet, her story persists. Poets keep writing about it. Painters keep painting it, usually with a wild disregard for realism and a disturbing interest. In leaves sprouting from human elbows, playwrights turn it into allegory. Academics argue endlessly. Historians still debate whether Daphne's transformation was tragedy, triumph, or metaphor. Some call it self-sacrifice. Others say it's empowerment. Fringe scholars suggest she simply outsmarted the gods. One theory claims she became the laurel because immortality in tree form beats awkward conversations for eternity. Meanwhile, you keep showing up in culture like an ancient cameo artist. A statue here, a poem there. Your face is on coins, your name on spacecraft, your myth referenced in pop songs you pretend not to like. You like them, but no matter how many centuries pile on, the story doesn't fade. That one time you got traumatically rejected by a nymph and turned her into a botanical fashion icon? Immortal. You try dating again. You really do. But nothing quite sticks. There's Cassandra, who you gift the power of prophecy, then curse because she won't love you back. That one's on you. Then there's Coronis, who cheats on you with a mortal, so you kill her and rescue your unborn child from the flames. Again, emotionally mature decisions? Not your strong suit. You don't take rejection well, or betrayal, or mild criticism. You try therapy. Eventually, not officially. There aren't therapists for gods, but you invent it for mortals and occasionally borrow the idea. You write your feelings into music, pour your longing into sunrises, cry discreetly during lunar eclipses. You channel your heartbreak into prophecy. Delphi becomes your voice. Perched high on Mount Parnassus, your temple buzzes with incense and riddles. Mortals line up for your wisdom, even though your oracles never give straight answers. You like it that way. Vagueness is your love language. Will I find happiness? They ask. The path bends like the river. Your priestess replies, in a trance. Should I marry him? The laurel does not bloom twice. You smile. You haven't forgotten. There's something comforting in that. That even the strangest, saddest moments ripple forward. That every heartbreak plants something. A song. A warning. A tree. You don't go back to her grove anymore. Not really. But sometimes, in a quiet moment, you feel the pull. A breeze lifts. A curl of your golden hair. The scent of leaves, dry and sweet, brushes your memory. The world tilts, just enough to make you wonder if she notices. You think maybe she does. Or maybe that's just your poetic side, refusing to die quietly. And that's the thing about you. You never really let go. Not entirely. You hold on to things, songs, faces, moments, trees, until they grow into myths. Until they wear crowns of laurel and walk through history like they own the place. You carry Daphne not in your arms, but in the very way you are. In every victory crowned with leaves. In every melody that ends on a wistful note. In every mortal who turns to the sky and says, Apollo, help me understand this feeling. And you do, because no one gets tragic, inconvenient love quite like you. Time passes, and by time, we mean the full stretch of ancient history, plus a few centuries for dramatic flair. Empires rise, statues crumble, and someone eventually decides wearing socks with sandals is a good idea. But you remain, because gods don't age, they adapt. You shift subtly as the world changes. The music evolves, and you evolve with it, though you still think lyres are underappreciated. Mortals stop building temples and start naming space missions after you. Which, honestly, feels like a decent trade-off. But Daphne? She stays rooted, a quiet presence in a noisy world. The laurel tree that once was a girl, who once was a nymph, who once just wanted to be left alone. And yet, her story persists. Poets keep writing about it. Painters keep painting it, usually with a wild disregard for realism and a disturbing interest. In leaves sprouting from human elbows. Playwrights turn it into allegory. Academics argue endlessly. Historians still debate whether Daphne's transformation was tragedy, triumph, or metaphor. Some call it self-sacrifice. Others say it's empowerment. Fringe scholars suggest she simply outsmarted the gods. One theory claims she became the laurel because immortality in tree form beats awkward conversations for eternity. Meanwhile, you keep showing up in culture like an ancient cameo artist. A statue here, a poem there. Your face is on coins, your name on spacecraft. Your myth referenced in pop songs you pretend not to like. You like them, but no matter how many centuries pile on, the story doesn't fade. That one time you got dramatically rejected by a nymph and turned her into a botanical fashion icon? Immortal. You try dating again? You really do, but nothing quite sticks. There's Cassandra, who you gift the power of prophecy, then curse because she won't love you back. That one's on you. Then there's Coronis, who cheats on you with a mortal, so you kill her and rescue your unborn child from the flames. Again, emotionally mature decisions? Not your strong suit. You don't take rejection well, or betrayal, or mild criticism. You try therapy. Eventually, not officially. There aren't therapists for gods. But you invent it for mortals, and occasionally borrow the idea. You write your feelings into music, pour your longing into sunrises, cry discreetly during lunar eclipses. You channel your heartbreak into prophecy. Delphi becomes your voice. Perched high on Mount Parnassus, your temple buzzes with incense and riddles. Mortals line up for your wisdom, even though your oracles never give straight answers. You like it that way. Vagueness is your love language. Will I find happiness? They ask. The path bends like the river. Your priestess replies, in a trance. Should I marry him? A laurel does not bloom twice. You smile. You haven't forgotten. There's something comforting in that. That even the strangest, saddest moments ripple forward. At every heartbreak plants something. A song, a warning, a tree. You don't go back to her grove anymore. Not really. But sometimes in a quiet moment, you feel the pull. A breeze lifts. A curl of your golden hair. The scent of leaves, dry and sweet, brushes your memory. The world tilts, just enough to make you wonder if she notices. You think maybe she does. Or maybe that's just your poetic side, refusing to die quietly. And that's the thing about you. You never really let go. Not entirely. You hold on to things, songs, faces, moments, trees, until they grow into myths. Until they wear crowns of laurel and walk through history like they own the place. You carry Daphne not in your arms, but in the very way you are. In every victory crowned with leaves. In every melody that ends on a wistful note. In every mortal who turns to the sky and says, Apollo, help me understand this feeling. And you do, because no one gets tragic, inconvenient. You spend a lot more time in Delphi these days, not just because it's your sacred site, though. Yes, the view is excellent, and the snacks are decent. But because the mortals who come here still believe in something. They show up barefoot, hearts full of worry, carrying questions you already know the answers to. It's comforting, in a weird, time loop way. Your priestess, the Pythia, perches on her tripod seat above the vapor-spewing chasm, muttering your riddles. She says things like, the spear that falls will rise again when the moon mourns. The petitioner nods solemnly, pretending to understand, then leaves to misinterpret it spectacularly. Classic. You could just say, don't trust your brother-in-law. But where's the mythic tension in that? Still, even after all this time, prophecy feels like your truest language. Not music, not poetry, not even golden archery, but this, the careful art of almost telling the truth, of wrapping it in just enough mist that it has to be felt, not solved. There's power in that. And gentleness. One afternoon, as your oracle babbles visions of bees and collapsing walls, you drift off slightly, eyes half closed, thoughts wandering. You imagine Daphne standing just outside the temple, arms crossed, eyebrow raised, her expression saying, you're still being dramatic, aren't you? And you are, but maybe a little less than before. You wonder what she'd say about your cult, about the rituals, the songs, the laurel crowns. Would she laugh, roll her eyes, secretly be flattered? Or would she simply nod and vanish into the trees? Again, historians still debate what Delphi's chasm really was. Some say it was volcanic fumes. Others say it was just a marketing stunt. Fringe theories suggest it was a god-sized sigh you let out centuries ago and forgot to reel back in. Either way, it still works. Mortals keep coming. They bring offerings, cakes, coins, occasionally a goat. They leave feeling lighter, even when they understand nothing you told them. That's the gift of ambiguity. That's the trick of Apollo. But what they don't know, what they'll never know, is that sometimes you listen to them. You sit in the temple shadows and let their questions float into your chest. Will she forgive me? Am I enough? Does anyone see me? You do. You hear all of it. You carry it gently, like a fragile bowl of water you don't want to spill. You hum it into your music, whisper it into the breeze. Let it echo into your sunbeams. You don't always answer with words. Sometimes you just warm the air around someone. Let their path be a little clearer. Let their burden feel a touch lighter. You never expected that part of Godhood. The soft ministry of simply being there for people who will never know your name. But it feels right. Like standing at the edge of the sea during sunset, knowing the tide doesn't need permission to come in. You think about how far you've come from the impulsive, radiant youth who chased love without listening to the quieter presence you've become. Still radiant, yes. Still impossibly attractive, of course. But a little less urgent. And more and more. You realize that love doesn't always mean possession. Sometimes it means pause. Sometimes it means patience. Sometimes it means letting someone turn into a tree and honoring that decision for eternity. You don't say that out loud, though Aries would laugh you into next week. But deep down, you know that's where the myth changed you. Where Daphne changed you. Not in the chase. In There's a strange kind of peace in watching your old myths grow legs of their own. You overhear mortals retelling your stories, some accurate, others wildly misremembered, like the one where you accidentally invent pizza. You didn't, but honestly, you wish you had. They dramatize your heartbreaks, your glories, your occasional pettiness, and somehow they make you bigger and smaller at the same time. You're flattered. And also mildly horrified. One child insists that Daphne turned into a broccoli tree to escape you. Another says you invented sunlight because you got bored of the dark. You're tempted to correct them, but you let it go. You've come to like the chaos of being half-truth, half-whisper, and one-third dramatic reenactment in a toga. And still, every version of the Daphne story circles back to that one moment her feet on the forest floor, her breath sharp, her eyes set ahead, not behind. That's the part they never change. That it makes you wonder if that was the real myth. Not the chase, not the tree, but the choice. Your temple priests paint her as a symbol of purity. Artists portray her mid-transformation fingers becoming leaves, hair twisting into branches. But you remember her feet hitting the ground, the tension in her shoulders, the will in her eyes. That split second when the world tipped toward no. It's burned into your memory. Some mortals say you were cursed. Others say she was blessed. Fringe interpretations claim you both were part of a larger cosmic lesson, like some eternal PSA on boundaries. Historians still argue whether Ovid exaggerated your obsession or downplayed her resistance. Some say the myth is a metaphor for artistic inspiration, fleeting, beautiful, always one step ahead. Others say it's about rejection, or ego, or that very specific kind of pain that comes from being loved the wrong way. You don't argue anymore. Let them debate. You're more interested in the quieter details now, the ones no scroll ever captured, like how the forest smelled that day green and gold, alive with summer tension. Or how your breath caught when she didn't scream, just ran. Or how, when she changed, the light hit her in a way that made you forget your own name for half a second. You tried to visit other groves sometimes. There are other trees, other songs. You pretend it's not about her. Sometimes you succeed. Other times you find yourself tracing the lines of a laurel leaf with your fingertips, hearing a voice that never quite left your ribcage. But you don't follow it anymore. That, perhaps, is your greatest evolution. The ability to let a story be what it was, without rewriting it into something easier. Mortals often ask your oracle, will I get closure? The Pythia always answers the same way. Some doors open by staying. Closed. You think that one came from you. You've gotten good at saying goodbye without bitterness. Or at least, without as much of it. You still wear laurel wreaths, still name constellations. still slip her memory into melodies when no one's listening. But you don't chase ghosts anymore. You let her live, even if that life is in roots, in bark, in the way sunlight filters through high branches on a quiet afternoon. You've realized something important. Love isn't always meant to be returned. Sometimes it's meant to be released, Dot. And sometimes the greatest tribute you can give someone is distance. You always thought being a god meant certainty. You'd know the beginning, the middle, and the end. You'd predict everything, control everything, be everything. But then Daphne happened, Dot, and now, all these centuries later, you're still unraveling what that moment meant, Dot. It's funny. You've given prophecies to kings, whispered omens into the wind, and told emperors the exact date of their downfall. But when it comes to that one girl in the grove, the one who didn't even speak to you, you're still guessing. Maybe that's the point. You start spending more time with the muses. Calliope says you're mellowing out. Erato teases that you're still tragically single. Polyhymnia just hums gently and hands you a bowl of olives. They help. You write music again, not for applause, not for festivals, not to impress someone, just because the melody needs to be born. A quiet little tune with no lyrics, no audience. You play it by moonlight, tucked into the hills above Delphi. Dot. It sounds like leaves. Dot. It sounds like footsteps. Dot. It sounds like her. You don't cry. Dot. Probably. Dot. But there's a dampness in the air. That could be anything. You start walking among mortals. Again, more often than before. You watch the way they love, the way they mess it up, the way they try again. You see a boy give a girl a flower and blush furiously when she says thank you. You see an old couple sit in silence under a tree, not needing words at all, and you wonder if Daphne ever loved anyone. If she would have, given time. Or if the forest was always enough. Fringe philosophers have argued she represented self-love before it was trendy. Others say she was the goddess of, I just need space. Historians still can't agree if she was a mortal nymph or a minor deity with a major PR problem. You've stopped trying to define her. You just remember. One day, a young poet arrives at your temple. He doesn't bring gold or fruit, just a scrap of parchment and a question. Why does beauty always hurt? The Pythia stares at him for a long time, eyes glowing faintly, and then she says, very softly, because it moves faster than we do. You weren't expecting that. You sit with it. Beauty does move fast. That's why you chased her. Not out of cruelty, but panic. That feeling of, if I don't reach this now, I never will. But maybe beauty was never meant to be caught. Maybe. It was always meant to pass through you, to mark you, to leave you softer, wiser, and slightly ridiculous in retrospect. You think back to your younger self. Gleaming, impulsive, dramatic. You can't decide if you want to hug him or slap him with a sandal. Probably both, but he meant well. He just didn't understand that admiration isn't a contract. That desire doesn't guarantee reciprocation. That sometimes, the most beautiful thing you'll ever see will be something you're not allowed to hold. You watch the sunset from the edge of the temple. It floods the mountains in gold and rose in fire. You could reach out, try to grab it. Don't. You just sit there. Your name used to echo like a war cry. Apollo, the destroyer of serpents, the bringer of light, the archer with arrows of silver flame. A name that made mortals tremble, inspired songs, and sent your siblings into various states of awe, exasperation. Now, your name floats more gently. Whispered in poetry, etched into dusty schoolbooks, or muttered by exhausted parents when the sun refuses to let their toddler nap. Still powerful. Just softer. And honestly, you don't mind. Power, as it turns out, isn't always about volume. Sometimes it's about presence. Quiet, unwavering presence. Like the way sunlight presses through a window, even when the curtains are drawn. That's what you've become. The god who stays. Not to intervene, not to conquer. just to bear witness, to warm, to reflect. It's an unexpected evolution. If someone had told your younger snake-slaying self that one day you'd find joy in silence, you would have laughed loudly, then probably tried to turn them into a cricket. But here you are, sitting under a laurel tree, still shining. Just differently. You still write hymns sometimes. Not the grand, dramatic ones, more like small letters to the world. A breeze here, a bird song there, the hush of golden light across olive leaves. A different kind of music, one you don't need lyre to play. Sometimes you wonder how much of your story mortals really understand. They get the basics. Boy sees girl, girl flees, girl becomes tree, boy is sad. Cue tragic soundtrack. But the texture of it, the layers, they often miss that. They don't know that you didn't stop loving her when she changed. They don't know how often you've returned not to touch her, not to beg, but to sit. Just sit beneath her boughs. Let your hands hover near the bark and whisper apologies. The wind barely catches. I was young. I didn't listen. You didn't owe me anything. I see that now. Historians still argue whether you ever touched her again. Some say you made a crown from her. Leaves as a promise never to harm another maiden. Others say you wept until the roots carried your tears to the underworld. Fringe poets claim she speaks back now, through rustling branches and falling leaves. That if you listen carefully, you'll hear her answer, maybe, but you don't listen for that anymore. You've learned to let her silence be enough. You've seen 1,000 mortals walk through this same lesson, wanting something so fiercely, they forget the wanting isn't the problem. It's the entitlement. The belief that desire makes something yours. It doesn't. Not always. Sometimes the greatest act of love is stepping back. You try to teach that now, in your own way. Through riddles, through sunbeams, through the occasional overly cryptic dream sequence. And they don't always get it. But some do. A girl once came to Delphi, clutching a ribbon soaked in tears. She didn't speak, just placed it on the altar, and left. You knew her pain, not the details, just the shape of it. So you let the next dawn linger longer. Let the light touch her window more gently than usual. Let her waking feel, if only for a moment, held. That's all you can do sometimes. Just be there when the shadows pull back, still shining, still waiting, still learning what it means to love without asking. It's strange how even gods grow older. Not in the mortal sense. You don't wrinkle, your joints don't creak, and your hair remains permanently excellent. But something shifts. Your radiance, once blinding, now feels more like a slow, steady burn. Less wildfire, more candlelight. You used to believe your myth would end with victory, triumph over chaos. Admiration from all corners of the world, your name etched into marble. Now you suspect it ends exactly like this. Quiet, unresolved, kind. Delphi still hums with offerings. Mortals come and go, asking the same questions they always have. Will I find love? Will I be remembered? Am I on the right path? And you, the golden god of light and truth, no longer feel the need to shout answers. You've come to prefer guiding hands, subtle signs, moments where they figure it out for themselves and think it was all their idea. That's real divinity. You visit the laurel grove more often now. Not daily, that would be dramatic, even for you, but often enough that the wind knows your name. The bark shifts slightly when you arrive, like it's acknowledging you. Or maybe that's just your imagination. Still, you bring small gifts, a song, a thread of sunlight. Once, a ribbon from a girl who reminded you of her. Not because you think Daphne needs them, but because you do. Fringe theologians have tried to interpret this behavior. Some claim it's ritual penance. Others believe it's your way of preserving memory. A few romantics insist you're still in love and always will be. You don't bother clarifying. You're not even sure yourself. All you know is that you still remember the way she ran. Not because it hurt, but because it taught you what not to. Do again that it taught you that even a god needs boundaries. That immortality doesn't mean ownership. That no matter how divine your glow, you are not the sun in everyone's story. And that's okay. You find yourself mentoring younger gods now. Hermes, restless and clever, asks you how to win hearts. You chuckle and tell him. Sometimes you don't. Dionysus wants to know how to handle grief. You just hand him a glass and sit beside him. You've become the calm voice in the room. The one who says, maybe we let this go, instead of let's set it on fire. Growth. It sneaks up on you. Like that moment you looked at a laurel branch and felt warmth instead of longing. Like when you realized her silence wasn't a curse, but a boundary you finally learned to honor. Like when you watched a mortal girl choose herself over romance and smiled. Not because it echoed your past, but because it gave her a future. Historians still argue whether Daphne ever spoke again after the transformation. Some say she whispers to the wind. Some say she's asleep beneath the roots, dreaming of escape. Others believe she simply became what she always wanted to be, untouchable and entirely her own. You think that's probably true. And honestly, good for her. The world didn't deserve to take her voice. You're just glad it didn't take her choice. As for you, you still glow, still sing, still give cryptic prophecies that drive people mildly insane. But beneath all that divine flash, there's a softness now. A tree-shaped ache that's no longer about pain, not just memory, not just growth. Just the long, slow miracle of letting someone go and staying whole anyway. As it turns out, is the only god stronger than you. Not even in the dramatic way. There's no epic duel where Kronos shows up and slaps your lyre out of your hands. No hourglass countdown as you race against fate. Just the slow settling of things. The drift of stories from sharp to soft. People stop asking about Daphne quite so often. They remember your plagues, your poetry, your golden chariots streaking across the sky. They whisper about Cassandra, Hyacinthus, Coronis. They debate whether your arrows were metaphorical or just very shiny murder sticks. But Daphne, she becomes quieter, not forgotten never, but gentled. She shifts from myth to metaphor, from tale to symbol. In paintings. She's almost always mid-transformation, half woman, half tree, arms stretched upward like she's still reaching, still moving. You never correct them. You let her keep running. You, meanwhile, keep showing up in their lives in subtler ways. A sudden sunbeam on a cold morning. Tune stuck in their head they're sure they've never heard before. A strangely insightful haiku scrawled on a cafe napkin. You're not always the center of attention anymore. Sometimes you're the background warmth that makes a room feel safe. The hint of divinity that turns a poem into something more. And you like it that way. You walk among your temples, quieter now. You see how even your priests have softened. They light fewer incense fires, ask fewer grand questions, and focus more on the light within than the glory above. One day, a little boy offers you a crown made of clover and string. He doesn't know who you are, just that you were kind to the birds that morning. You bow as you accept it, and he giggles. You wear it all day. Historians still argue whether gods crave worship or simply attention. A fringe theory that what you really want is connection. A shared glance, a laugh, a moment of being understood without explanation. Maybe that's what Daphne took with her when she left. The illusion that being a god means always being known. Because sometimes the deepest love is the one that never gets seen. And sometimes you find pieces of it in unexpected places. Like a mortal woman sitting beneath a laurel tree, sketching its branches with soft charcoal and humming one of your melodies. She doesn't know it came from you, but she feels it in her bones. That's enough. You sit nearby, unseen, for an hour, not watching her, just being near. Like sunlight, on stone dot, and when you leave, you don't take anything with you. Not a leaf, not a sketch, not even a sigh dot. You just go dot peacefully dot, because after all these centuries, you've finally learned the lesson. Some things aren't yours to keep. Some loves aren't stories, they're echoes. And you don't need to chase them anymore to prove they were real. Some mornings, when the world is quiet and the sun hasn't quite decided whether to rise, you find yourself walking, not for ceremony, not to make an entrance, just because your feet skim over dew-soaked hills, over temples worn smooth by prayers, past villages still dreaming. You aren't shining like before. You're glowing, yes, but only gently. A soft warmth that doesn't demand attention. You pause beside the same laurel tree dot, of course you do dot. It stands taller now, stronger. The branches spread wider than they used to, almost as if they're reaching not away, but outward. No one worships it. No garlands, no incense, no festivals dot. But people rest here. They lean their backs against the bark. They read. They breathe. Once, someone carved a heart into the trunk, clumsy, sweet, already fading. You smiled and ran your fingers gently over the edges, whispering, ask next time. Not angry, just amused. You hum a melody under your breath, one she never heard, but would have liked. It's quiet, but a bird picks up the tune and adds a few notes of its own. You nod approvingly. Very collaborative. People still tell your stories. Though they've changed in one version, you chased her out of rage in another. You begged her to stay in one modern retelling. You turned yourself into a tree next to hers. Very dramatic. You admire the effort. Historians argue about your motivations. Fringe academics host midnight podcasts about whether you were the hero or the cautionary tale. You've stopped correcting anyone. Let the stories evolve. They're meant to. Daphne, after all, was never just a girl. She became a symbol, a movement, an echo that still makes people stop mid-sentence and reconsider their assumptions. And you? You became something too. Not the god of conquest or prophecy or plagues, but the god who learned, the god who changed, who loved and let go. You step away from the tree not because you're done, but because you finally understood. This moment was never about claiming. It was always about witnessing. About loving something enough to leave it while. You head back up the hill, the wind tugging at your robes, the first sunlight stretching across the sky in long, sleepy strokes. You don't look back. Not this time, because she's not behind you. She's everywhere. Now. In every tree. In every woman who chooses herself. In every story that doesn't end with a kiss, but a quiet escape. And you? You walk into the light. Still Apollo. Still radiant, but softer now. Still divine, but wiser. Still alone, but never lonely. And now? Let the warmth of Apollo's story fade gently into the back of your mind. The chase is over. The arrows have been lowered. The sun no longer burns. It just lingers, soft and golden, like the hush before sleep. Picture yourself beneath that laurel tree, not as a god, not as a nymph, not even as a storyteller. Just you, bare feet in the grass, the hush of leaves above, the sunlight stroking your skin like it remembers who you are. There is no pressure here, no one to impress, no myths to fulfill, only breath, only calm, only the slow, slow unraveling of thought. If a breeze brushes your cheek, let it. If a memory drifts through your head, thank it and let it go. Tonight, you've wandered through temples and forests, through longing and transformation. You've watched a god learn gentleness. You've followed a girl into the trees. You've seen that not every story needs resolution. Some just need space. So take that space now. Let your body sink deeper into stillness. Let your breath grow slower. Let the last bits of light fade behind your eyes like the very last golden thread unraveling from a god's hands. You are safe. You are enough, Dot, and just like Apollo, you're allowed to rest. The story will wait. Sleep well, dream softly, and may your night be as quiet as laurel leaves. Asterisk sweet dreams, guys.